Hello, 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 everyone. Good evening. Good evening, and good evening. Hello. Hi, Keisha. How are you? How are you doing? It's good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Please, if you all don't mind sharing this, um, information, I'm very excited about. This is something I'll just talk briefly before we start the listening party. I'm very excited to be bringing this information to parents that I've serviced and parents that I've never met. And I'm just really excited that we are doing it in a positive light and allowing families to really to just be enriched. Um, oh, thank you, Keisha. I'm just really excited to bring this to parents. I've been advocating for families for 15 years, and this is near and dear to my heart. And we need help in our communities. Parents always want, as I mentioned, um, I don't know a parent that gets everything right, but I know a lot of parents who want the best for their child. And so I'm really, really excited about Enrichment on the Go. It will be dropping every Monday. You can tune in to however you listen to your podcast. You can subscribe wherever you listen. And so I'm really, really excited about this. And we're going to do a Q&A. And so if you all have questions as you come in or at the end of the listening party, you're more than welcome to ask your questions. But I appreciate you sharing that, Keisha. I don't know if well, it's probably too late to try to tag me, but I'm still very excited. Um, and what I found is that a lot of times parents want assistance, they just don't know how, or sometimes how to ask for it, or it could be a little uncomfortable because sometimes as parents we think we should have all the answers, but we don't have all the answers. And so that's why we created this podcast, so to assist you in your journey of parenthood, right? And so today we're going to be listening to best ways to positively discipline your child. All right. There are positive ways, positive reinforcement, positive ways that you can really assist your child in their learning and in the home and in your daily routines. All right. So I'm really excited about this. And I'm going to give it a few more moments, but I would like for you all to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. And I'm excited. I want to give it a few. I said 7, so we're going to start at 7. And again, oh, thank you so much, Keisha. I'm going to do that now. Okay, perfect. Oh, perfect. Okay, so it should be on my page, right? I don't know about this stuff. So it should be on my page already. Let's see. Okay, it should be. Yeah, I think it's on there. All right. So thank you for that, Keisha. I really appreciate that. So I know as I mentioned, I was gonna wait till 7 and I'm gonna go ahead and start the listening party. And then if people come in again at the end, if you have questions that you want or may want to, you may have a suggestion for a parent, or you may even want to tag a parent. But it's really, thank you, Wanda. Um, how are you? And I want you all's feedback too. I really do. If you all stay until the end. But I'm really excited. This one is best ways to positively discipline your child, right? So I'm excited. We're going to go ahead and start the listening party. All right. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Enrichment on the Go. I am very excited today. I have one of my, she's an amazing person. Her name is Miss Kiana Williams. In the classroom, they call her Mrs. Williams, Miss Williams, excuse me. And Kiana, I've known her for a very, very long time, but I'm very excited to have her on this platform with me. And Kiana Williams is a first grade teacher in Waldorf, Maryland. She graduated from Towson University with a Bachelor's of Science in Early Childhood Education and a certificate in Business Administration. Her passion for working with young children began at a very young age. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you so much. And she's actually worked with me for many years. And so it's an exciting thing because we always want to bring information to our parents. And so with this episode, we're going to be talking about the best ways to positively discipline your child. I know that this can somewhat be a touchy subject at times, but we do have to use developmentally appropriate practices when working with children. You all as parents, I'm a parent myself, and so I understand what it means to have to discipline your child. Discipline is not a bad word. All right, so we're just going to talk about some different types of tools. We're going to give you some resources on tonight today, what you can do to positively discipline your child. So we're going to start by just discussing some parenting styles, all right?
Exciting.
Yes. And we've met all types of parents during our tenure in this field. And we're going to discuss cultural aspects of parenting because each family dynamic is made up of a different culture.
Absolutely.
Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean, or is not limited to ethnicity. Right? You may have the grandmother who's raising the child. You may have a guardian who's raising the child. You may have a single parent, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a mom. It could be a dad. You may have an uncle involved in the caring or rearing of a child. And so it's very important that as a unit, you all work together as a family to ensure that you all are positively disciplining the children.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it takes a village.
A village. And right. And we talked about that, because we're a unit.
Yeah.
We work together. So grandmas, they like to spoil, or some people like to say, but grandmas, I say give that extra love, but I want to encourage grandmas, right? When you give that extra love, that you are ensuring that developmentally the child is still being almost held accountable just for their actions.
Absolutely. And it's consistent.
Exactly. It's consistent. Mm-hmm. So the different types of parenting styles. And I love talking about this. It's authoritative. So an authoritative parenting style is more democratic, right? So it's controlling and demanding, but it's warm. You're more rational person. I think I would say I'm authoritative. Depends.
The church amen.
The church amen. It depends. I think at times, but a permissive
parenting style is child centered, right? It's non controlling, non demanding. It's relatively warm, but this parenting style is where you are actually allowing the child to be in charge.
I was gonna say it a different way.
Say what you gonna say.
I was gonna say you like the child do anything. But I think that well I'll let you finish and then I'll like say what I was gonna say about like all three of them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then the authoritarian, they're detached, controlling, and somewhat less warm. And unfortunately, I have seen this, and socially and emotionally, it really does affect your child and how they engage with their classmates, other children, and even the caregiver or their teachers.
Absolutely. And I was gonna say like just talking about in different situations, I feel like you have to, kind of pick a certain style depending on like the situation. You are definitely authoritative, but I like the description how it said controlling and demanding but warm, rational and receptive. Like that those words are very important because I feel like at certain times you want to keep in mind that you are a parent or a guardian, and that you like your job is to bring in that nurturing, but you're also there as the authoritative.
No, yeah, you're right.
The authoritarian.
Figure.
Yeah,
authoritative figure.
Yes, yes. That's what I was trying to say. Like you are that person. So I think that description was like perfect in just like describing how, because at the end of the day, it is about the child, but it's about how you communicate with the child about their needs and yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because sometimes I know myself as a parent, but I'm glad I'm in this field because, and I think it's so important for parents. That's why I love being able to do this because parents, you have to understand that you matter in this scenario as well, right? So one thing that we often do, because we always talk about the children's emotions in the classroom, so they may be upset, right? And I often, if there's something that they do or we're redirecting, and then I'll say that didn't make. I'm sad. I'm not happy because they have to understand that they're not the only ones with emotions.
Yeah,
it shows them empathy. Right? So they learn to empathize with others and not think that it's all centered around them.
Yes.
And
that's developmental too.
Absolutely.
Because at that young age, they're not thinking about it like that. So I think that's really important to show them and model, scaffold, all of those things that we do as teachers or expected to do as teachers is kind of the same thing like in parenting.
It really is. Yeah. And I think sometimes where the disconnect can be is that parents sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes parents only expect that from the teachers or the caregiver, right? But you parents, we're expecting it from you as well because what is modeled in the classroom, even behavior-wise, right? Often is taking place at home. And so it is just being modeled. So when the teacher may contact you and say, your child is having some behavior issues today, don't bash the teacher. Let's work together. We're not going to bash a parent. We want to work together because at the end of the day, as Kiana said, it's centered around the child.
Absolutely.
And what we are trying to produce productive citizens.
Productive citizens and citizens with emotion and compassion and all these things. And I also was going to add just like consistency.
Absolutely.
So when and sometimes like even if I do have to contact a parent, I'll sometimes ask like, do you see these behaviors at home?
Absolutely.
Because if you see this at home too, like we really need to work together to like get to the root of this issue.
Right. And I think that's the way we say it, right? Even to one another, parent to teacher
Right.
or parent to caregiver is not in a way that is to diminish your role as the parent or our role as the caregiver or teacher. It's okay, are they modeling these behaviors at home? First of all, we're not just going to call. There may be an observation first. So we're observing because it could just be a moment. Children have moments. People have moments.
Everyone has moments. Everyone.
Yeah, it could just completely be a little bit of a meltdown there. And it's like, wait a minute. And I remember last year, and I've had this transpire before, but one of the children in my program, they have a guardian, and the one of the guardians passed away. And so they let me know, and I was very thankful for that information. And even up until this year, one time we were out, and I could see him kind of looking off. And so I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "I miss Pop Pop." And in that moment, all I did was say, "Come here," and give him a hug, because I had to connect with the child. And I think it's very important that we understand, parents, that you connect with the child. You may have something when you pick up your child from school, you may be going right to something else, but just really try to be mindful to say, "Hey, how was your day?" Or even, "I had a rough day," depending on the age of the child, right? I think it's important. And so the importance of routine and how that should reflect guidance is really what we're talking about for the child in all who interact with the child. So let's talk about the importance of routine.
Very important. But I think it's also just because you are what's the like drilling, not drilling, but when you model, like you keep doing something. There's a word
It's repetitive. When something's repetitive,
yeah, but
you're demonstrating.
It's close. It's along those lines. But what I'm basically trying to say is like you want to keep like giving your child the opportunity to work on, practice, and like perfect like what you want them to do. So you do that with the routine. So like, well, okay, we'll just talk about in the classroom. In my classroom, like we have a schedule we follow daily. We have a guided reading schedule that we follow with the mindset of they're going to keep doing this and they're going to keep doing it better. To a certain point, they won't need me anymore.
Absolutely.
And that's when you're training, up a child. Like that's that training. That routine is their training. And it is. I gotta figure out that word. Like I know.
I should know it too.
I was about to say there's a word for it. Like the reason that you do. I'll figure it out. Okay. Next episode.
So we really want to, and even now, what I've noticed and I've really in the classroom, you have to get through your curriculum. There are certain milestones and developmentally or in the curriculum that you have to meet. But let's talk about that a little bit, especially with what transpired with COVID, because one thing I've always really, we have a routine in my program, but sometimes the routine needs to change just a little. Because maybe the children, it was a 3-day weekend, right? And now they're all tired by 11 o'clock instead of nap time, which may be at 12:30, right? So you have to be, that's what I always love about early childhood development. Yes, you may have a routine, and even you as parents, you may have a routine, you may have it that they go to bed every night at 6 o'clock. Well, maybe they were cranky at 6, and maybe they need a little bit of extra TLC right now. Maybe 6 o'clock that has to be 6:15, or maybe it needs to be 5:45. I just to be a little flexible because life happens, things happen where you may have to change some things. But positive discipline, and I just want to encourage you all, if you're on the road with your child or you're taking, you're in I don't know, maybe you're at an event or something of that nature and you have to take your child with you, make sure you have some developmentally appropriate toys, something to engage the child. Don't expect a 2 or 3-year-old to sit for 4 hours because you're going to become frustrated. They're going to become frustrated, and there's no need. If you give them pack a little backpack. I used to do that all the time when my kids were young, right? No matter where we went, they had their own little backpack. They had their own little snacks. You know, you laughing.
Yeah.
They always had snacks, and they were fed. Don't, and especially sometimes when we're in a rush or we're rushing as parents, because sometimes you are just trying to get to work or you're trying to get the child there so you can at least get to work by the skin of your teeth at times, right?
Yeah.
However, if you leave a bag that may be packed for them, so that child, or you could grab, or it stays in the car.
Yeah,
right?
I was just about to say that has something that stays in the car. So
Right.
Because you never know, like, oh, I have to, run here or run there, and so like you always have it. And you also said something like developmentally appropriate, but all of this is basically showing your child that you are there as their caregiver, as their parent to respond to their needs.
That's awesome.
And it's like think about like when you're hungry and you're cranky, or when you're tired and you're cranky, like when like your needs, basic needs, Maslow's hierarchy, when those needs aren't met, like you're not productive, like you may have an attitude, like your emotions get in the way. So it's really showing them like how, okay, like mommy, daddy, papa, whoever, like they're showing me how to take care of myself.
That's awesome.
Like it's that training. It's all in their training. And then I like how this is way back, but I like how you said that discipline is not a bad word, because discipline is one of those words where it's just like
almost want to say taboo in a sense.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And you do have to go positively in front of it, because there is a way to do it where you aren't hurting your child's feelings, you aren't hurting your own feelings, but you're also like not, I probably want to say like you're not showing them that since I am the adult, like you do what I say do, because this, because that, and I'm gonna raise my voice and talk to you like this
any kind of way.
Yeah, because I'm the adult.
Right. And that almost is more like a lordship, or you belong to me. I tell you what to do. And you are, but you want to be sure you're guiding behavior instead of that doesn't mean you're never going to tell your child no.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't get it. Don't get it.
No, yeah, absolutely not. It's not. It's definitely not that. But it's a balance to it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would for you. Let's talk about you for an example.
Oh no.
Like I feel like when we were younger and you were disciplining us and stuff, like you the first thing you do was told us what we were doing wrong. And then you gave us like a opportunity to one, like fix it, or two, give us another option just in case we thought we wanted to do something like that again. Like maybe you should try this instead of that. And I think that's the important balance of it, because we still respected you as a parent, but we still know that you loved us as our parent.
Did that make sense? No, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying for a parent, because at the end of the day, right, at some point that child is going to have interactions with other people, and eventually they may be a parent, or they may be, you don't know what they're going to be. And what you don't want to ever do is diminish your child to the point where there's no longer any creativity, where they don't want to speak up, where they don't want to talk. And so this is the importance of choices, consequences, and follow through as a parent. That is actually what we're segueing into. The importance of choices, consequences, and follow through as a parent. And a parent's role versus a child's role. You're your child. You can be friendly to your child, but you're not your child's friend to the point where the child thinks that you all are actually almost on the, it's like they're talking to you like they talk to their friends.
Yeah, and I think I see that more common now.
Oh,
it's way more common now. Even because as a teacher, like I have students who I went to high school like with their parents, or like I just have a connection to like maybe auntie or something like that. And this isn't just for like young like parents though, like this is just something that I see, like, or when I am like contacting like a family or whatever, it's kind of just like you can tell
You really can.
who is the third
who's the
authoritarian,
authoritative figure,
yes,
in
like
in that aspect.
yes,
Yeah.
like you can definitely tell.
Absolutely.
So it's like, think of a child with at home, they're running the show. Then when they come to classroom, like, okay, I have 23 students in here. 23 kids can't run this show.
Right.
Like, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's like, so that's where at school it becomes a problem because of course they're coming in the classroom and they're like, why can't I do this? Why can't, and all this other stuff because, and like sometimes I do explain to children, like, you are not the only student in here. Like, I have to respond to a lot of people's needs and not just yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then that's when, got to teach children how to be patient. If you want something, sometimes you're just not going to get it right then and there.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one because if they have not been taught that and to think about,
or had to do it.
That's
to
true.
do it. Like,
or never had to share, or maybe they're the only child.
Mm-hmm.
And now they come in, and everyone is kind of catered to them, which there's nothing wrong with being there for your child. But again, we have to make sure that you are that your child developmentally can handle things. Because if I've seen some children, if you say no, thank you, or not at this moment, it's a whole meltdown. I'm not talking about a toddler because a 2-year-old where that's developmentally appropriate. I'm talking a child who's 8,
right,
who's never been told no, or you have to wait, and that is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see, when we have to parents, that is something that you have to teach your child. Your child at some point, whether you're homeschooling, because there are different ways to teach your child. But you want your child to be able to function in society. That doesn't mean that they're going to stop being an introvert or extrovert, or maybe you do have that introvert that wants to become an extrovert, but they don't know how. I think we have to really think about that because I've seen some children, we've seen throughout the years where they were very withdrawn, but they didn't have a space to be themselves.
And they come out that shell.
And then they don't go back in.
Yes.
But I do really enjoy that, even though they don't go back in. I love to see who and what they're becoming.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And even then, it still may have to be monitored or tailored. I know, like, my youngest, oh man, he was quiet, and then he became. I was like, what is going on here? But it had to just be.
But he was figuring himself out.
That's good.
He was figuring himself out. Like even just watching his stages, he was trying to figure himself out, and that's literally. I mean, we all get to a point where we're trying to figure ourselves out.
Yeah.
And it's just as and it's possible to experience that as a child.
I think that's good because it helps with their creativity. You can see where they're going early. What they have what their likes are. Maybe you have an artist on your hand. Maybe you have a Picasso. Maybe you have
Musician,
an architect, an archaeologist. You don't know, but what you don't want to do is limit what could be trying to come out, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen when they're 35 or 50, and that's not to diminish anybody else, but I love to have children. I love to see them dream and talk about things because it's beautiful. So when you positively discipline, it allows a space and a time for you and your child to regroup, to reassess. Maybe you do need to change some things. And even let's talk about like bedtime routine. I think it's very important.
You gonna say it.
Right? Because wait a minute, when
Your kids didn't like to go to sleep.
yeah, right. No, but when you have that cranky child that comes
Yes.
into the classroom, you as the teacher now have to assist that child. So parents, if you know if your child had a rough night, let the teacher know, or
Absolutely.
shoot an email early in the morning. You can voice text the email. I think that's important. Or hey, I remember we had a child in the program, and there was he'd been in our program for about 2 years, and then all of a sudden he was 4, and he just kept screaming. And I said, "What is going on?" So I reached out and I said, "Hey, did something change within the home?" And a family member had moved out, and it was affecting because the social connections, the emotional. And I said, "Okay, that's what's going on."
And I think that's important too, because just how you reached out and asked, I feel like sometimes parents, if they don't know, like, okay, let's say we're telling a parent, like, cater to your child's needs, but what if a parent doesn't know their child's needs? Like, how do you figure that out? And I think sometimes, and not in all situations, sometimes you can just simply ask, what are your needs? Just how you reached out and said, what is going on? You can kind of have that, especially if, you have a child who is really good with communication.
That's good.
Because that's also another thing, like teaching your child how to communicate. Like if mommy doesn't say how she feels, or daddy, or no one ever communicates to me how they feel, how am I gonna, And then, so it's then like, one, first you gotta, model how to communicate, but also just ask, like, how are you feeling today? Right. Or what's wrong? Like, what do you need from me?
And I think the communication piece is very important, because when you teach your child to effectively communicate, you won't get, I've had children come in my program and they're cursing at 3, and I'm like, okay, something's happening at home. So we have a little bit of a word here. So what I'm saying is, if you're upset, parents, dang nabbit, or oh my goodness,
they pick up words.
They're sponges. They're literal sponges. So whatever you're doing, I've seen some really bad behaviors that have been modeled, but what we want to do is equip you all as parents, or if there are things that you know that you want to do or you're doing, that you be very mindful of what the child is seeing. I think that's because that
you can correct yourself too.
That's good.
Like, let's say you did slip up, or let's say you have been
what is it?
Yeah, I was about to say
authoritarian.
Yes, controlling, like, in this whole time, like, just coming, because I know the first time my mother told me she was sorry, I was like, oh my goodness.
Parents get it wrong.
Yes, you do get it wrong. So if you're listening, and you're like, you think about things that you may have said or done that could have possibly like hurt your child, like you can go and apologize and show them the corrective behavior.
And that's really good, because if not, sometimes that's where bullying could even come in, if you're not showing the child that you don't get it right all the time, because we're human. So I think showing the parents, showing them your side, your I'm trying to think of the word, but just not your perspective, but just that you have feelings too.
You're hurt.
I'm hurt. And I'm hurt, or mommy's had a bad day, or I think that's one thing that I'm really happy about, is that, like, my husband and I, we've always done that. Like, talk to your children. It's important, and it can be developmentally appropriate, but you need to have conversations. Sometimes I've seen, and it's not always that it's your fault, parents. Sometimes you may have to move abruptly or something of that nature. And so what you can say is, hey, we have to move. This isn't a good situation, but we're going to be okay because we're together. Mm-hmm. And that may be all you can say to them, but I think that would be an amazing way to keep the lines of communication open with your child. Yeah. And, allowing them to have choices within their space. Mm-hmm. If you create a space, their room, let them have choices within their room, right? Oh, so, yeah, right, for instance, right. At nap, okay, or it's bedtime, right? Read a quick book to your child. Sing a song to your child. I used to wake my children up singing to them. I would sing a song to them, or I would read a book, or if not at nap or at bedtime, in the day. Come here, let's read a quick. Even if it's one page, you don't get to read the whole book. Mm-hmm. But you can tell if they get upset because, we want to read the whole book. Okay, you can take the book and sleep with it, and you can make up your own story, right? Just use your creativity. But back to what I was saying about the toy options, or maybe they want to sleep with two, but you only want them to sleep with one. Okay, let's make a choice. You can either sleep with this one or this one. You need to decide. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a moment to decide. That is a way that you are offering choices, but you are still guiding and directing and positively disciplining your child. That's good. Yeah. Well, parents, we hope that we helped you on today, and thank you for tuning in.
Okay, so thank you all for tuning in. Please let me know honest feedback, how you felt. This is the uncut version of the podcast, so I do want to express that it's the uncut version, but we wanted to show it via YouTube. But I really wanted you. I see one of my old parents is on here. I don't know if she's still on, Natalie. But her children came through the program, and so she knows all about how, I think one of her children used to be an introvert, but they totally became an extrovert. And so that's what we were discussing. If there are questions that you have, or someone may have questions, if you come back in and listen to this, please, thank you, Wanda. I appreciate that, your feedback. Thank you, Keisha. I really appreciate your feedback. If parents, or if you come back in and you listen to this, please give us your feedback. If you have questions, please. Oh yeah, you're here. Yes, and her children are now in high school, and so I'm really excited. She knows everything that I was saying there are things that we actually did. One of her children was very introverted, and but now, I mean, they just blossom so much. I see them now, and I'm so happy to see them, and just to know that we had one fingerprint in helping them to be effective. Yes, you can. You need a teen version. Yes, actually, in the lounge, we're going to have teen. We have an actual teen community within the parents' lounge. So we have. I mean, we're covering the gamut here, and I'm really excited. So this was just You can follow us on YouTube, Enrichment on the Go, and the links, they'll come out every Monday along with the actual podcast. But we have so many more topics. I just wanted to do a launch party for the first one. I'll still share them, the YouTube, on my page. But I'm really, really excited. We have doctors that are a part of this. And so I'm really excited. But yes, she did come out of her shell, and I'm glad she did, because Natalie, you mind if I just kind of not say their names, but just talk about that for 1 second, or no? I just want her approval. You good, Natalie? Okay, I don't know. But I know if you have siblings, it was the first day today. Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. But she has twins, and sometimes with twins, they are very, they're very, very close. They're well. I know someone else on here who has twins, so she can probably agree as well. But twins have a very, very strong bond. And I'm not. It's just genetically the way it is. They have it. I mean, a beautiful bond. One could say one part of the sentence, and the other one finishes, and you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? I was talking to this one, and this one answered. But with twins, genetically, they have such a very close bond. Sometimes they can feel what the other one's feeling and things of that nature. And so one twin was very outspoken, where the other twin was not. And so the one twin, would speak up for the other one. And then while that was beautiful, as your child is getting, especially with early childhood development, as your child is getting ready to go into school, right? Let's say you have, and they may not be depending on the school, the twins may not be in the same classroom. And at that point, after doing observation and assessments, at one point I was I actually talked to this mom, her, and I said that it may be best for them to be separate, because what you want is them to develop their own identity. Yes, they are twins. Yes, yes, yes. But you want them to be able to identify as an individual. And so we worked diligently on that while they were in the program, just to make sure that they had their own voice, so those were conversations. And again, that was even, helping to guide the behavior. And that's what I was referring to when positively disciplining. I mean, when you say discipline is not a bad word, but to guide the behavior. And this is what you always want to do, is guide behavior. We don't want to tell the child what to do all the time, because they have to learn to work through whatever's going on. And so with the twins, I'm so excited, because now they're both very, very, they just are amazing children. And again, I'm just thankful to even have had a fingerprint in who they become. And I'm very grateful for that. But we always want to guide behavior. And I remember even after they left the program, she would come back and ask me my opinion. But I think that was great. I appreciate you allowing me to use that as an illustration, because again, your child, you want your child to have their own identity. And so as you effectively discipline, positively, you're going to see your child thrive, because they need those social interactions. But I want to say this before we go. Parents, children love boundaries. I know we don't think that they do, but I promise you, your child wants boundaries, right? They want to know that they are safe. Boundaries equal safety. Boundaries mean that I have a safe space to do it, whatever it is I may want to do. All right. But it's a safe space. And when you don't give boundaries, your child feels out of control. All right. So that's why you want to give boundaries. All right. And so thank you, Charla. And so I really want to tell you that they like boundaries. All right. But they are going to test the boundaries. That does not mean that they're not going to test the boundaries. All right. But you as the parent have to stand firm on the boundaries that you set. If you decide to change the boundaries, it should be a conversation. But these are ways you effectively to effectively, excuse me, positively discipline your child. All right. This is how you can positively discipline your child, by offering them choices and letting them know what their boundaries are. And one thing that I want to say, parents, also before we go, is that if you don't positively discipline your child, there can be a lot of repercussions behind that, right? So if you, let's say for instance, you never tell the child, you need to stay beside me or hold my hand, or I need you to put on your listening ears and wait for me. In the event of an emergency, I'm talking a true emergency where, a car is coming down the street and it's flying at 50 miles per hour, or there's a fire in the home, something that is detrimental to you or the child, or both of you all's life. And if the child is not used to boundaries, when it is the most important time for them to listen, you don't want it to cost them their life. Okay. And I don't like to say that, but I have to say that because it's true. Okay. So we have to make sure that we are positively disciplining our children. All right. And so I thank you for coming into the listening party. Thank you for sharing. Parents, if you want to join the Parents Lounge, but please subscribe to the podcast. We have so many things, things just for you to see, hear, and listen to, and we want your feedback. All right. So if you want to join, go to www.enrichmentonthego regarding the lounge. Okay. I'm just kind of putting out all of that here, but I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to be bringing this. Yes, we do talk about special needs, depending on what the special need is. But we do talk about that, Margie, in one of our episodes. But if you're talking about disciplining, positively disciplining a child with special needs, we would need more information if it's a child with ADHD or ADD, or, maybe there's a child on the autism spectrum. Then you need to know how to you still want to positively discipline the child, which is all about guiding behavior. All right. So autism, depending on where they are on the spectrum, they still need to be able to follow instructions. The biggest thing with that is that, children will often, the routine has to stay the same. That's why I was saying boundaries, i.e. meaning routine, all of they work together. And so if you have a routine for the child and transitional phrases, I really like to talk about this. Letting the child know what the transition is ahead of time helps a lot. So for instance, let me give an example. Okay. So it's free play, or, the child is totally engaged in building blocks. Okay, let me give an example of that. I've worked with children with autism as well, but the child is building with blocks. Okay, and in 5 minutes, or let's say 10 minutes, it's time for lunch. Okay, so what you want to do is say, oh, thank you, Natalie. What you want to do is say, in 10 minutes, excuse me, everyone, or, to your child, in 10 minutes, we're going to transition to another activity. Okay, so you're going to it's almost like a countdown. You know how we do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or you may want to count, or, transitional phrases are, some of them are 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, right? Well, I was pointing to the ears. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. All right. Or do you have on your listening ears? Depending on the child. And another great way to positively discipline is because, children with autism don't always like you right in the face, but depending on what's going on with the child, you want to try to get on their level. It's different when you're talking to a child. They're here and you're just, talking almost down to them. But when you can get on their level, but just depending, one, two, three, eyes on me. It could be a transition of you turn the light on and back, I mean, off and back on. Those are great ways. Or again, do you have on your listening ears? We have certain rules, right? So do you have on your listening ears today? Did you let me see your listening ears, right? These are things to help them to transition. And just depending, you may have to give that child a little more time, but have the next activity prepared. Okay. Have the next activity prepared, especially for a child with autism. But again, it depends where they are on the spectrum. But it's easier to do when you already have the next activity prepared. Because if you're telling a child that's next, they're expecting that to be next. Okay. And the routine, you don't want to break a child with autism's routine. It's but depend, something happens like a 9/11 or something where you have to abruptly leave, then you're going to kind of have to work through that. But you want to still have something that they can do. Or if it's time to eat and that child likes a block, especially depending on what the special need is, you may need to let them still have one block. What is one block going to hurt? It's not five, but it really depends. And you work work through that with the child. You don't just abruptly take from them. You can't just abruptly change routine on children. It really does something. And now I'm not just talking about on the autistic spectrum, just period. When you break a child's routine like that, if a child's been used to coming somewhere and then you just abruptly stop bringing them, that's why even with COVID, I mean, I know we're gonna have a lot of things to work through. Well, I've been open the whole time, but teachers are gonna have a lot to work through in the classroom. So parents, it's vitally important that you start the routine. If your child hasn't gone back to school yet, start the routine a week in advance. I've always done this. I'm talking as a parent now, even with my own children. Start the routine a week in advance. If they're going into a new school or into childcare, start a routine a week in advance. Okay. Start a new routine a week in advance and tell them what's going to happen. Tell them that you're going back to school. You're going to have to get up early. We're going to have to prepare. Talk to them, but also help them and do. All right. You can't just tell them and not do. All right. So I really appreciate you all coming in, but you have to prepare them. I started preparing my children even when they were in high school. I was like, listen, you have to go to bed earlier, a couple out, you have to, and you have to start training your body to wake up, because you're gonna, we do that. Can you imagine if you've been off all this time and then you have to go back to work? Your body is like, what just happened? So it's the same for them. They're just little people. They still have the same emotions, everything like us. They're just little people. And they're trying to figure it out, but they can't figure it out without our help. Okay. So I hope that that's been somewhat helpful for you, Margie. We do have the Parents Lounge if you would like to join, so that we could just be a support for you, give you tools, resources, tips. I want this space for parents to be very safe and a place where you can, it's like, I'm not alone. And I know that for parents, sometimes you feel like you're in something alone. I've been doing this again for 15 years. And sometimes it's just a conversation. No, you're not alone. It may not have been a good day, but that doesn't mean every day is going to be bad. Right. So, every day doesn't have to be bad, and it can become better. And with the right resources, tools, tips, and help and assistance, it will get better. If you're consistent, if parents, I'm telling you, children love consistency, and it really helps them socially and emotionally. to stay calm in situations. I know Natalie was on here, but she knows I've done things, and so we can have conversations. Okay, let's talk about what just happened. You know, let's talk about it. Okay, well, how can we do this differently, or what do you think? And getting the child's input. But just because a child is on the autistic spectrum, or has a special need, does not mean that they can't learn. And inclusion will always be the best way. You want them to be included. You never in my program, and I'm not just talking I just want to talk about that. You never want to make a child feel out of place, right? You never want to make a child feel like I don't belong here. And so special needs can be a child that's diabetic. So there's a lot of different I've had diabetic children in my program and things of that nature, and people kind of the children would look like, well, what's going on with them, or why do they have this, why do they have that pump? Well, this is a great way and segue. You explain it to them. This is what they need for their bodies to stay healthy, and they're okay. It doesn't matter. I always tell the children, no one looks just alike. Even a twin is individual. So you want to show them diversity and get them to understand that nobody's going to look the same. All right. So these are some things and some other things we'll be talking about. But I really appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Margie, you're not alone. Parents, every parent, you are not alone. And please subscribe to the podcast. If you have topic suggestions, or if you want to leave questions here, we'll come back in, we'll take a look, and we will do our best to answer your questions, and even create episodes based off of it, okay? Because we want you to be the best parent and your child's first advocate. All right? All right. Good night, everybody, and thank you for joining the listening party. Have a great evening.